again on a Friday, and we are broadcasting We're back here on DVD, 102.5 The Game. Remember, the 615 golf tournament might be sold out, but you can bid on all kinds of awesome experiences to directly support Folds of Honor at 615open.com/auction. Have an unforgettable time while supporting a great cause. We're back here on the show. Willie Donick and Derrick Mason here with you. Connor Nute behind the glass, and we are joined by Chad Withrow. He is, of course, not with us right now, so he'll be on here in just a moment. Connor just sent me the text, so we'll get hooked up with Chad, hopefully, from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Is Chad skipping out on us, Derrick? Does he not want to talk about the balls? What's going on?
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe not. He may think that they got some problems down there. He don't want to talk about those problems. You never know, man.
Everybody's got problems. Come on, we
everybody around sports have problems. Like yes, absolutely. So, but no, I mean, whether it's the Vols, the Titans, he's always one to, give a direct answer, meaning Chad. So that's why we love having him on, because he has great perspective on things that we ask.
We'll get him on the game text or hotline driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One of the things I wanted to bounce off of Chad, and I'll throw it at you, Derrick. Oh, we got Chad? All right, let's bring him on. Chad Withrow from Hot Mike and Hutton and Withrow is with us. Chad, what's going on?
Willie, how we doing, buddy?
I am doing well. I am up. I'm in a college dorm. Chad, I don't know if you can top this, but have you ever done a show from a college dorm? Your kids are not college age yet, but maybe that day will come.
I have not done a show from a college dorm, and when I lived in a college dorm, I was not fit to do a show. So that's perfect that you're getting a chance to really live the dream. No, great job by you. How is Dennis doing?
This dorm in particular here, and I can picture it. I can picture Chad stumbling in.
Yes. Yeah, there would be, let's put it this way. I would have been internet ready before internet was really a thing in terms of shows. It certainly wasn't broadcast ready, whatever I was doing in college.
Okay. We'll leave it there for now, but I can picture me stumbling in behind you and then D-Mace not far behind me. So,
yes, absolutely. So, hey, it would have been a heck of a time. Probably would have been a great show.
It would have been probably very late at night, too. Or something.
It would have been epic, as the kids say. Do they even say that
no
still?
No doubt about
it. Lit, as they say.
Yeah. There we go.
The fives would be great. Fives would be high, as the kids say.
Sorry, I got to keep up with these terms. My kids remind me all the time. Couple of issues from OTAs. I'll let Derrick hit on some of them. But so let's start with Tennessee. I sort of set the table for this before you came on, Chad. I know you guys had a great talk. You and Hut had a great talk with Tony Vitello out in San Francisco as they were about to begin the season. It hasn't gone well for the Giants. I really think they're scrutinizing him because it's such a unique situation. Buster Posey, the GM who hired him, is also coming under a lot of criticism because they're just not that good of a team. I'm not sure any manager would be doing a whole lot better. But as you look, here we are basically a season later. Tennessee's going to go back to the NCAA tournament. So they had a solid season, but it's not maybe quite as dominant as it has been under Vitello. So a year later, what do you think?
Well, I think that, I probably speak for a lot of Tennessee fans, and I say that if things continue to go south with the Giants, I'd be fine with Tony Vitello coming right back to Tennessee and being the head coach. And that's, that's not fair to Josh Elander because he's done an okay job in year one. It was never going to be easy. There was going to be a bit of a talent drop-off also this year with that Tennessee team, and they got better as the year went on, and they were playing some of their best baseball at the end of the year. But Willie, in talking with Tony Vitello, he was very upfront about that, that he knows what he doesn't know, and that he's relying on people with a lot of Major League Baseball experience to help him along the way. And I think that he is so honest, almost to a fault, that it's going to get him in trouble with what's being said and written about him, simply because he's going to say exactly how it is. And if he's too honest at times, I don't think fans are going to love that. When you're talking about things going on in the clubhouse like he has and being honest about it, people say, oh, well, that's sacrosanct in Major League Baseball. You don't talk about stuff in the clubhouse. And here's this rookie that doesn't understand that you don't do that. But that's just Tony. That's always been him. He's always going to say it exactly how he feels it in the moment. and he's going to let it rip. So I don't know that works great over the course of a 162-game season. I will tell you this. I ran into Will Clark, of all people, at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame induction recently. And I went up and talked to him and asked him what he thought about Tony Vitello. And Will Clark said, look, Tony's got to find a way to get guys to play harder. And he said, I don't know that that's a manager's job when you get to Major League Baseball, but said that they got some guys on that team that simply don't play hard enough. And I know Will Clark has his own podcast and has said the same thing, but he was big on, look, the manager puts 9 guys on a lineup card, and it's up to those 9 guys to go out and do something. And right now, those guys aren't doing anything for him. So I think there's a couple different ways to look at it, but I think after one Tennessee baseball season in, Josh E. Leonard did an okay job. But you poll Tennessee fans, and if it continues to go this badly for Tony Vitello, they'd love to take him right back.
I'm really curious if that actually becomes something that builds momentum, because we're very early in this whole situation. But Chad, one other thing that I think is, I don't know if it surprised me. I was trying to see how he would make those adjustments. I think game in and game out, the Giants games I've watched, I don't notice too many crazy things. He's not managing the same way on the field as he did at Tennessee. In other words, he's not right in the umpire's ear, a step outside the dugout, ready to pounce at any time. His teams aren't doing anything crazy. And you kind of knew that had to be the case. Where I think he's really adjusting, you touched on it, is the way he handles the media. It's an everyday thing. It's a much bigger audience, and they're not winning. So everything he's saying is being thrown through the ringer. You see these clips about, why did Tony Vitello say that? He's certainly giving the media plenty of fodder to talk about there, but it's so much different than it was in Knoxville, where there's less people. Not as many people are going to question him, especially when they were winning as many games as they were.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Willie. That's the biggest adjustment for him. And I don't know that he changes that. I don't know that that's something that he sees a need to change based on outside criticism. It's who he is. It's what got him to this point, is being kind of a charismatic guy who you don't quite know what he's going to say or going to do. I do think he's been a bit tamed down in terms of his whole on-field demeanor as a manager.
Yes.
As opposed to in Tennessee. And he said this with us. We talked about, hey, are you going to have some sort of prop, and are you going to have home run stuff, and are your guys going to get in fights and flip people the bird when they're rounding second base and doing all that? And he said, my guys are going to be my guys. And he said, they're going to be themselves. That's what they did at Tennessee. He said, I tended to attract certain types of guys that I would let them be the individuals that they are, is what he told us. And that's going to be the same with the San Francisco Giants. So if he's got guys like that they perform better playing on edge like that, then he's going to let them do that. But if not, he's not going to get in their way. I think he brought up Logan Webb as an example of, this guy's got so many years of Major League Baseball starter. He knows his routine each week to get ready. He said, my job is to help him get ready in whatever way he needs. I'm not going to coach him, because he knows exactly what he needs to do. He's got a wife and kids and a mortgage, and he's a grown man. But for others, he's going to have to coach more of them. So I think that's kind of the balance, Willie, of learning each player and what they need.
We'll talk with Chad. Excuse me. We'll talk with Chad Withrow, Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Excuse me, Chad. I'm a little choked up here. But the Titans had their mini
too much
camp.
fun in the dorms. There,
Yes,
you're going back to your college days.
That was those darn Doritos that I was eating, and they were hot too. So I'm sitting here, my mouth burning. But that's something you shouldn't do as you talk on the radio. Eat Doritos and hot. May I add too? But no, Chad, they had their first mini camp OTA yesterday. Obviously, the big thing was Cam Ward and his 10 pounds. How do you think that affects him moving forward? I'm looking at it from the standpoint of affecting him in a good way. But how do you think that helps him as a quarterback moving into the season?
Oh, I mean, look, I think anything that you would, whether it's true or not, anything that could possibly help you withstand the beating that Cam Ward took, a year ago behind that offensive line, or that can get you through the season, I think could be seen as a positive. I also know that there's been a lot made about body changes for OTAs. And then by the time, and that's good and bad, right? Guys who get ripped, or guys who get lean, or guys who put on 15 pounds of muscle. And then by the time you get to the season, a lot of times it's very different. with what they are. The big talk in Knoxville right now with George McIntyre is that he finally weighs over 200 pounds, and he's 6'6". He's 203 pounds. So that's a real growth for him. Well, when he comes back to school for workouts, is he still going to be over 200 pounds? Is he going to be more than that? So, I mean, I don't get too involved in the weight of guys right now or what that looks like, but I do think that it could be a positive development if it's something that can help him withstand the beating that he's likely to take.
Now, I think one of the other big question marks for the Titans, and really the main one, is the offensive line. And how are they going to replace, or who are they going to put in at center and right guard, in particular right guard? Obviously, Slater is there, and he's the guy that is working in now. How important is it going to be, knowing that they don't have as many days to get this offensive line going? Now you see Cam Ward drop some weight that may expose him to a couple of more hits. And how does he take it? But how important is it going to be for the offensive line, and who replaces Zeitler at that right guard position?
No, I mean, I think, just finding the right five is very important for the Titans right now. And I think just having that, identity more than anything else is going to be big for that group. Whoever the player is, that's going to be the replacement. I think it's key to have a certain swagger is not the right word, but physicality and a way of playing that you would associate with the best Titans teams of the past. And I think they've lost that the last few years, and they haven't won a lot of games in large part because of that. But I do think it's getting back to that is what is most important for the Titans right now.
Now, Saleh brought up in his presser yesterday, Femi, and what he wants to see from Femi, and how Femi needs to be more violent. Now, we talked about this yesterday on the show, how I took that and how, other people may take that. How do you think he's going to be one of the guys? Because he has all the measurables, and Saleh even talked about it. I mean, 6'3", 250, 260, somewhere around there, a long wingspan. The guy can be physical. So how do you think he's going to be one of the guys that benefits the most from the aggressive style of play that Saleh wants?
No, I really do. And I think that's why, you look at Falk, the draft pick, trading up to get him. I think if you're going to be optimistic about that pick, it's because Robert Saleh sees something that he's seen in players he's coached with the 49ers, let's say, where he's had the most success as defensive coordinator. And I think Femi is a guy that he could be one of those types of players that are dynamic and can really make plays, much like Saleh had with the 49ers. And again, guys, I think it all comes back to identity. That's what the Titans have been lacking. And I think when you look at Saleh's defense, they usually have an identity. Now, as a head coach, it wasn't successful with the Jets, but that could change here. And I think Brian Daboll also, he's a guy that his offenses tend to have identity and know what they're doing. So I think that's a big sign of optimism for this Titans team, is that they both know what they're looking for. They know what they want. We know what that defense and offense looks like. And now let's go and play it and get some of those young guys going where they can be difference makers.
We're talking to Chad Withrow, Hot Mike with Hut and Withrow. Chad, I'm glad you referenced George McIntyre, because I was noticing earlier today, just after the Denison game was over, we went to have lunch, and I look at the TV in the restaurant, and there's Nate Bargatze and Jared Curtis in the studio with Pat McAfee. That is pretty crazy. But we had a little discussion earlier. We're going to get more into it in some coming shows here, but it looks like at some point, whether it's right at the start of the season or somewhere early in the season, both Vanderbilt and Tennessee are going to have very young quarterbacks going, freshmen in some form. Tell us what's going on over in Knoxville right now with George McIntyre. Do you think he's going to take it? I hear a lot about Faison Brandon as well, who's a true freshman. So how is that going to unfold?
I think, Willie, it's $1 million question. And I mean literally millions of dollars on the line here is the question. I mean, Tennessee's going to be paying a quarterback $3 to $4 million that's not playing this year with the two guys they have on campus. That's how much it took to get five-star George McIntyre from Brentwood Academy, and that's probably how much it took to get Faison Brandon, who is a borderline five-star out of North Carolina. So it's an expensive decision for Tennessee, and a guy who's probably going to bolt to go start somewhere else, whoever doesn't get that start. I think both Tennessee and Vandy they're in an interesting spot and also a predicament. because this is not the way of college football right now to go with the young guy. My guy, Trey Wallace, I know he said recently that he thinks Faison Brandon's going to be the guy, that he's got the better skill set. He's a little bit more Hendon Hooker for Josh Heupel's offense, which obviously was very successful for Tennessee. I don't know who's going to end up being the starter, Willie, but I think just the fact that in both Knoxville and Nashville, you're going to have either a true freshman, or in Knoxville, you might have a sophomore as a starter, a redshirt freshman. I think it's crazy when you look across the SEC and see all those veteran guys. It's a gamble for both, right? I mean, I think for Vandy, it's more understandable that you went and got the number one quarterback in the country. You're going to have him for 3 years, and he's going in knowing he's going to be the starter. So it's really a long-term play. I think for Tennessee, yeah, it could be a long-term play if it's Faison Brandon as a starter, but I also just don't know that that's what's best for success right now. And I will say, I was at Nate Bargatze's movie premiere, The Breadwinner, and Jared Curtis appears in the first 30 seconds of the movie in a Vanderbilt hat. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. If you're a Vanderbilt fan, to see your quarterback, I don't know that most of America is going to know who he is, because he's just being shown a minivan in a car lot by car salesman Nate Bargatze. But that's pretty awesome that the starting quarterback of Vanderbilt has an NIL deal that includes him being in a Hollywood movie that's starring the biggest Vanderbilt fan on the planet, and Nate Bargatze, or at least the most famous. So cool things all around, but I don't know that it's best for what's going to win in 2026.
Yeah, it's good. That will be a story for sure. I can only hope. I think Vanderbilt fans can only hope that, you know, they recycle all these movies on all these movie channels that pop up. You have to hope that in like 10 or 12 years, if that Nate Bargatze movie pops on and you see the beginning, so that it's automatic, people say, oh, there's Jared Curtis. If you don't recognize who that is, it didn't go very well for Jared Curtis as a college quarterback.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, if Jared Curtis becomes Aaron Rodgers, everyone's going to say, oh, look at young Jared Curtis, NFL All-Pro, future Hall of Famer there in a Vanderbilt hat before he even got to school, or as he was leaving high school. And I will say, you know, when they show things on TV, it says this has been edited down to format the television length, the runtime, whatever. It's going to be tough to cut that out, Willie, because it's right in the beginning of the movie. I mean, it is during the opening credits. You're going to get a chance to see Jared Curtis. So I don't think he's going to be cut from any television copy of that movie.
So he's in there for better or worse forever. So,
he's in there. He's right in the beginning.
Chad, we'll keep an eye on this theme. Thanks a lot for joining us here on this Friday afternoon. Have a good weekend.
Yep, guys, you have a good one too.
All right, that's Chad Withrow, Hot Mike from Hutton and Withrow, joining us as he does every week here on DVD. When we come back, we will bring that back up for discussion for a moment, because I think it's an interesting story. Freshman quarterbacks, probably for both Vanderbilt and Tennessee. There's probably no way around it. It's a matter of which one for Tennessee, and it's a matter of how quick Jared Curtis takes the job for Vanderbilt. So we'll come back to that and get D. Mace's take on it. You're listening to DVD here on 102.5 The Game.
Hey, if you've lived in Middle Tennessee for any time, then you've seen how wild our weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes, to floods. We've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storms earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost power for 7 days. That's 7 days out of my house, 7 days in a hotel, worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst or not. That's when I realized being prepared isn't optional. I'll be ready the next time a weather emergency hits. I started looking around for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I reached out to them and chose them was because of the reviews and confidence other homeowners shared with their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to my house, they did a free on-site assessment, made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family, and didn't try to upsell me. The thing I appreciated the most is, again, they didn't try to oversell me on anything that they were trying to sell. They didn't tell me I needed this when I really didn't. They got straight to the point. They answered all my questions. Everything is turnkey, and they handle it all from installation to long-term services. If there's ever something that goes wrong, I'm not calling around. I'm making sure that I call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air because they've got me covered. That's the kind of relationship I want, and I know that's the kind of relationship you want. Look, the weather isn't slowing down. It's raining today, and it's going to be raining for the next couple of days. Be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhywait.com. That's tristatewhywait.com.
Okay, we're back here on DVD 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason. We have not been doing what Tyler Childers just said he was doing in the song, fortunately. But we move on. D-Mace, let's hit on something. I don't know if you actually, you guys, I know the studio oftentimes has the Pat McAfee show on. Back when we did our midday show, we used to have it on in the background every day. We could never hear what they were saying, but we could see who was on the show. But today, I look up there, and here's Nate Bargatze and Jared Curtis in the studio with Pat McAfee. So I had a couple of thoughts on that. You tell me what you think.
Well, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Willie.
Just tell me what you think on this. Is it good that he was there? I see the angle of, look, you can't, there's no such thing as bad publicity. This is huge free publicity for the Vanderbilt program. There was a day where Vanderbilt couldn't have paid $100,000 to have their quarterback on a Pat McAfee show, a show with that kind of exposure. But Nate Bargatze and his engine is giving all kinds of attention to a program that was starved for attention. Of course, they're winning some games. On the other hand, you've got a true freshman quarterback with huge expectations, and this isn't going to lower the expectations at all. So what do you give me your thoughts on that move?
Well, it's not, unless, listen, majority of the people are not going to realize who he is. They're just going to see a young kid with a Vanderbilt hat. Now, those that either are Vanderbilt alum, fans, affiliated with Vandy in any kind of way that really, immerse themselves in this, they're going to know who Jared Curtis is. And they're going to spot him out right away. Everybody in Nashville, they're going to know him when they see the movie. I don't know how I feel about this, because on one hand, I think it's an opportunity for a young man in any young man or woman that is coming into college, and they're an athlete and they're getting some type of NIL deal. This is an opportunity that you probably would have never gotten, and to be on a movie, a major film in theaters, and the first person everybody sees is you. How many kids going into college get that opportunity? And I think you're going to see more and more of things like this. Not necessarily, guys or girls being in movies, even though I think that will potentially happen here or there. But I think you're going to start to see some of these athletes in sort of realms that they didn't think that they would be in, or we've never seen a college athlete be in, whether it be in endorsements, doing things in other countries. I think you're gonna see a lot of it, because that's another avenue or another way to pay student athlete, or athletic student, as I call them, to get them to come to your university. It's going to have to be more than just a cash transaction. There's going to have to be other things, especially when you're talking about, the number one player in the country, or a top 10 player in the country, and every university is pulling at you. Well, what is going to separate you? What's going to separate Vanderbilt from Georgia? Well, this is what separated Vanderbilt from Georgia. One, the kid is right in the backyard, and then two, possibly, hey, he was in a movie. That could have been part of the lore for him. Oh man, I get to be on the big screen, take my whole family. We could make an event of this. So you're going to have to start doing more. That's why I said, I don't know how I quite feel about it, in a sense, because I know more is coming.
I think that's a great take on the movie. The movie itself, I think, is unique in that, number one, it's a fun thing that no matter how his football career goes, someday Jared Curtis can say, you know what, I was in the movies, when I was 18 or 19 years old, whatever he is. And that'll be a great story to tell. Also, I would say a high percentage of the people going to watch that movie, they're there to see if Nate Bargatze, they're to see Nate Bargatze, a funny movie. They're not really focused in. They may not even notice, a lot of the people, who that is, especially because Jared Curtis hasn't played a college football game yet. So unless you're from Nashville, you don't even know who he is. But I'm also just as curious about him going on the McAfee show, because that is a sports show. That's a sports audience. And Nate Bargatze's there to pump up the movie. But I'm sure there's a lot of intrigue from Pat McAfee on Jared Curtis and the story behind it. So let me bring Connor into the discussion. So, Connor, let's say you're Clark Lee, and Nate Bargatze calls you up and says, I'm going on McAfee. Can I bring Jared Curtis with me? They'd like to have him on the show. How do you feel about that? Because it's great exposure for the program. But on the other hand, though, here's a really young kid who is still, I'm sure, learning how to deal with the media in general. And now he's in this huge bubble where there's a lot of attention paid, and he hasn't taken a snap yet.
I think there's give and take there, Willie. And I think the reason I'm saying that is because I'm thinking of Arch Manning. And obviously,
yes,
there's a difference between having the last name Manning and being Jared Curtis, but Jared Curtis is still the number one quarterback in his class. So the reason I bring up Arch Manning is because everyone was ready to crown him as the savior of college football. He was listed number one in mock drafts before he even took his first snap at Texas as the true starter. So there's give and take there. Yes, I think it's great exposure for Vanderbilt, especially the university, the football program, for Clark Lee, for Jared Curtis, because now people know who and what he does on a national level. But at the same time, people are going in looking at this quarterback and saying, we have expectations for him if he's really as good as the media is telling us to. So if he comes in and doesn't deliver, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but hypothetically, if he comes in and doesn't deliver to the level that the media and these people watching are expecting him to, he and Vanderbilt are going to be, kind of slandered in the media, and there's going to be a disappointing outlook. So
it'll be something they'll have to deal with. Like they've said publicly that they want him to win the job, and they've said that he may not start the very first game. But if that's the case, if he's simply not ready, and he's a true freshman, then people are going to say, well, he was on the McAfee show. What's going on? They're hyping him up. He's not worth the hype, all that. So, D-Mace, that part of it, the McAfee, how do you feel about that?
Again, would I want my freshman, period, not even quarterback, just freshman, period? If you are considered, an elite player, do I want that much exposure put on him right away? He's already got it because obviously he's the number one quarterback in his recruiting class and the top player. So that's going to bring on a level of notoriety and everything else and pressure. But then once you throw him on the Pat McAfee show, I think that does add another level of pressure for a guy that hasn't taken a snap yet. Because, and I'm not saying that this will not be the last time that a freshman is on one of these networks, because it's either they're going to be on Pat McAfee, ESPN, or they're going to be on somebody's stream that has a lot of viewers. So the ESPN is like, well, we might as well have him because eventually he's going to be on somebody else's. So we might as well have him. And that also gives the school exposure. I wonder how Coach Lee felt about it. I'm sure he, was happy for the young man that he gets an opportunity, one, to be in the movie, but then two, be there with Nate Bargatze and helping endorse the movie. But as a head coach, you want to try to keep him under the radar as long as you can. Not to say that nobody knows about him, but you don't want to put added pressure on this kid to go out there and be ready for game one.
And you don't want something to happen to a kid who's 18 or 19 who hasn't had much experience in the media, having something happen where you say something you didn't mean.
Exactly.
And that creates attention you really would rather not have. I'll give you a backdrop of that. When I played basketball at Vanderbilt, my head coach was Eddie Fogler, who was a point guard and then a longtime assistant coach for Dean Smith at North Carolina. And Coach Smith, as Coach Fogler always called him, he never called him Dean Smith. He called him Coach Smith. One of Dean Smith's rules for every team he had was freshmen do not ever talk to the media until after the first game. He wanted absolutely zero contact between the media and his freshmen until after they had played a game. So that went from Michael Jordan, James Worthy, to the last guy on the bench, right? So, but that was the reason. He was trying to protect them and get them acclimated to the college game before they had to get acclimated to talking to the media. So times have changed for sure, but that is an approach that some coaches have taken. So I'm curious if Clark Lee had input on the whole McAfee thing. We'll take this over to the other side. I know we got a couple of callers here. 615-737-1025. Call or text your thoughts to our text hotline driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mitch Light's going to come up later in the show, but we're going to also hit on the Tennessee part of this. Freshman quarterbacks in the SEC in today's game. It's not easy to win. So what are we going to expect? Who's in better shape with a freshman quarterback? Vanderbilt or Tennessee coming up. That will be a theme all fall long. And so we'll set the table for it when we come back. 615-737-1025. You're listening to DVD. Hour number 2 is coming up. Hour number 2 of D-Mace, Bingen, and Donick coming at you here on 102.5 The Game. Glad to be with you once again here on this Friday afternoon. Hour number 2 of the show coming your way. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Connor Nute here with you this afternoon. Adam Bingen on vacation, and he'll be back with us again next week. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with the Buzz is always about great service. So we set the table for this. We've talked about the Jared Curtis story that goes back to last year, where about 2/3 of the way through the season, you started hearing about Jared Curtis perhaps decommitting from Georgia and going to Vanderbilt, as Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt were becoming a big story on College Game Day. Nate Bargatze, while this rumor was going on, they couldn't really mention any names. But Nate Bargatze was talking about, hey, do you want to be in a movie? Well, that's come to fruition. He's on the campus, and he's in a movie with Nate Bargatze. But he's still very young. He's going to be a true freshman, and he hasn't taken a college snap in a game yet, even though he's been on campus all semester and working his way towards hopefully a productive college career. Meanwhile, the University of Tennessee has a pair of freshman quarterbacks, a true freshman, Faison Brandon, and redshirt freshman from Nashville, Brentwood Academy, George McIntyre. So both Vanderbilt and Tennessee are likely to have freshman quarterbacks playing. And we know in today's SEC, today's college football, it has been proven over the last 3 or 4 years especially that older players, experienced players, tend to do way, way better. I think that's always been the case. But, Derrick, I would throw it this way. It seems like it's been even more exaggerated. It's harder and harder because players are a little bit older by age, and also the constant moving up and moving down. The better players move up. So the upperclassmen tend to be better than they were 5 or 10 years ago, because a lot of them have moved up. They're getting paid to move up. They're coming out of programs at a lower level. And so the overall level of play is tough. That makes it tough for college freshmen, especially at a position like quarterback, to excel. So do you agree with that theory, first off?
Yes. I mean, coming in as a young quarter, especially now, even though things have gotten better as far as how advanced these young men are, because listen, as you know, Willie, we didn't have all these camps that you can go to and all these analytics and all the stuff that made you we didn't have all that. We just went in the backyard or went on the playground or went in the gym and we worked on our stuff. So we didn't have all these metrics that these kids have now. But even with that, I think when you put a younger quarterback underneath center, you're going to have your growing pains. You look at what Texas did with Manny. They allowed him to sit and learn what was going on before thrusting him, even though many people wanted him, over years. People wanted him to be the starter. But Sarkisian said no. He was going to let the young man sit, and I guess his family felt the same way. And now I think he's benefiting from that. We've seen other places where freshman quarterbacks had to go in and take their lumps when they shouldn't have. I think that's why UT over the last 3 or 4 years, Vandy the last 2 years there in particular, they've been successful. Why? Because they've had veteran quarterbacks underneath center in both instances, guys that have played in other places, guys that have put in the hours. Then you get them at a little bit older age, and then they're continuing to develop, or they develop enough where now you have a real shot at winning an SEC title, winning a national title, or frankly just having a really good season. And we saw it sort of bear out with UT when they had their older quarterbacks, and obviously here with Vanderbilt with Diego the last 2 years. So having a young quarterback, I think in these two situations, it's going to be an uphill climb for both guys, I think, because of the way college sports is ran now. A lot of these teams are much older, and a lot of these quarterbacks are much older. So when you're taking a freshman quarterback and you're putting him out there against a Power 5 team that has a older quarterback, if your team isn't stacked almost, you're going to take your lumps.
I think that is definitely something to watch. I think it's just logical. You're just not going to have a full grasp of the game from not only the speed and the strength of the players you're playing against, but also the grasp of reading the field as the quarterback. So I definitely think that's going to be a factor. The question is, how much can you win in the meantime? As Chad Withrow pointed out in our first hour, he said, for Vanderbilt, it was such a clear-cut thing that when you have an opportunity that you've never had before in the program to get that high of a recruit, then it makes sense to just take the lumps and play him through it. And hopefully on the other side, as he gets more experience, you'll see the benefits, even though there might be some short-term setbacks. Tennessee is in a little bit of a different situation where I think, now you tell me if you disagree, Derrick, that I think there's pressure on Josh Heupel to win, get to the playoffs, and can he do it with not one but two freshman quarterbacks who may well be competing for the job in the early part of the season? You mentioned Arch Manning, who they decided early on. They already had Quinn Ewers. That was fairly easy. So he sat. A guy as talented as him, as highly recruited as he was, he sat. But his dad, Peyton Manning, way back when he was a freshman, they were going to sit him, but they had on that roster, this is how times have changed, where because people didn't transfer freely, they had the following quarterbacks on their roster. Jerry Colquitt, who was the guy who was patiently waiting to start. He was sitting behind Heath Schuler for 3 years. This was going to be his chance to play. You had him. You had Peyton Manning. And you had a guy named Brandon Stewart, who was another highly touted true freshman. And on top of that, you had Todd Helton, who was a two-sport guy who was in the Baseball Hall of Fame, ended up being a great baseball player. But he was on the team and a great athlete, ended up starting a couple games. So they had a very crowded thing. But what ended up happening is Colquitt got hurt in the first game. And for a couple of weeks there, Peyton Manning and Brandon Stewart were sort of battling out, playing in the same games. Helton got mixed in. Eventually, as we know, Peyton Manning emerged as the best player, and he went on to the career he had. But they lost a game or two early in the season while they tried to sort all of this out. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out this year with maybe as they try to figure out which freshman quarterback is the man.
Yeah, that's going to, be that's the big question, obviously, in Knoxville. That's why I think, if Aguilar would have gotten, that year back that he was petitioning for, obviously Heupel would have loved that. But instead, he has to field either, a true freshman or a guy, I think in his second year, that hasn't taken many snaps. So they're going to be dealing with that. Now, how good is the team around them? That's going to be, the issue. And at this point, I don't know how good UT is around their whether it be a freshman quarterback or their second year guy. Same thing with Vandy. How good are they going to be, around say if Jared Curtis does win the job? How good are they going to be around it? Well, we've seen what they've done as far as addressing the offensive line. They did that. And I think that's the first step into ensuring that, hopefully your quarterback, as long as he's protected, he can read the field. And then the guys around them, they've lost some guys due to the draft, and then some guys have transferred out, but they also brought in some guys. So how quickly can those guys around, the young quarterback, if he does end up winning the starting job, how good are they going to be early on as this young man starts to learn the offense?
Yeah, early on is a really good question because you figure that they'll get better the longer they play. Let me bring Connor into the discussion. So Connor, to me, expectations are a part of this equation too. If Vanderbilt were to play Curtis as a true freshman, and let's say they win 7 games, maybe 8, 7-5, 8-4, that's still relative to Vanderbilt history, a really solid season. And I think any Vanderbilt fan would say, hey, it's not 10 wins, but that's a good season. And you got Jared Curtis playing. He's only going to get better. For Tennessee, if you go 7-5 or 8-4, I don't know if that, hey, you're playing a freshman quarterback is going to fly.
Yeah, it's funny because I talked about this with Jake Lyman this morning. It feels like the program's are trending sort of in two different directions. And that's not saying that one team is going to be significantly better than the other, but for Vanderbilt, it's growing off of momentum. And you just had arguably the best season in your entire program's history last year with a 10-2 season. So it's about momentum. It's about establishing a national brand. And I think they're doing a good job of that. However, I don't think it's entirely fair to expect the same result this season, especially with a true freshman quarterback coming in. I know Jared Curtis is a topic of conversation and he's exciting, and Vanderbilt fans have never experienced a prospect like this magnitude. But let's keep in mind that Michigan did the same thing last year with Bryce Underwood as a true freshman quarterback, and he was fine. He was solid, but he didn't light the world on fire as the number one quarterback prospect. And I think the same could be said for Tennessee. Faison Brandon, George McIntyre, whoever comes into the fold there, they're going to be solid, and I think they're going to have weapons and good offensive line play around them. But I don't think it's fair to expect, a Heisman caliber season out of a true freshman quarterback. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's that fair to expect, oh, well, he's going to set records the moment he steps foot on campus.
I think you brought up something interesting, Connor. And like you put it, these two teams or these two programs seem to be like going in opposite directions. It's one that seems to be ascending. And again, like you said, it's not like Tennessee. I don't believe they're going to have a bad season. I think they're going to continue, their winning ways. A lot of it is going to hinge on whether the quarterback, whichever one it is up to speed. Is their defense, like it was last year or even better? But from a national standpoint, UT has their brand. It's going to last for it's going to go in perpetuity. That's their brand. But it doesn't seem like their brand is advancing, at least not from a football angle, is advancing at this point as fast as Vandy. Not to say that Vandy has caught up with them, because they haven't. They haven't. That's honest. But if you're talking about movement and relevancy, it seems like Vandy has been the team that has been more talked about because of Diego, because of the excitement of the last two seasons, a little bit more than what UT has been talked about outside of their quarterback issues.
Yeah,
Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and talk to Lance. Lance, welcome into DVD.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Lance.
Hey, Lance.
Yes, sir. I want to weigh in. First of all, I never even knew who Bargasky was until last year. I think when game day came to Nashville, and he said that Curtis could be in a movie. So I had to reach out to my daughter. I said, "Who is this guy?" Right. So that's how far out of touch I am. As far as Vandy goes, I'm 60 years old. I have never anticipated or wanted a football season to start. I look forward to it. I mean, we always look forward to basketball, but those days were past. I'm talking back in the 90s and 20s or whatever. And then we always had baseball, right? But now I'm looking at football, and if Jared Curtis, he could show his name around and spread the brand of Vanderbilt, more power to it. More power to Dr. Candace Lee is the accolades should go to. I mean, this woman has brought Vanderbilt out of the damn cesspool, excuse my French, into hey, we're going to spend some money. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're right about that. No, you're absolutely right. Thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm over here smiling because, this is a man that's explaining, he's 60 years old. He's been a Vanderbilt fan for the longest. He's always, was, excited about the basketball season, the baseball season, obviously. But now he just can't wait for the football season to come around. How many times in the past have you heard that about the Vanderbilt program? And he's right. A lot, listen, Clarkley has done a great job on the field with recruiting. That the whole mechanism he has working really well. But Candace Lee, she's the one that, helped infuse all of this. She's the one that sort of oversaw a lot of this. And he's right. And she's gotten, as many accolades and thank yous and everything else. Each time she comes on this show, we always talk about how great of a job she does. I was just talking with Shane this morning, and he talked about how great Candace Lee is doing. So the caller's right. It's not just Vandy. Candace Lee is doing a wonderful job, but just to hear him talk about how excited he is for the Vanderbilt season to start football wise, that brought a smile on my face.
No question. All right, let's stop there. I want to get more feedback from some of you on our phone and text line. Who do you think's in better shape? What do you expect with both Vanderbilt and Tennessee playing with freshman quarterbacks? Even though we know that there's a chance that Curtis doesn't start from day one, but we know somewhere very soon he is the guy that a lot is riding on, but he's very, very young. He was on the Pat McAfee show today with Nate Bargatze. Tennessee's got two freshman quarterbacks vying for the job. Working the expectations for each program to the equation and tell us what you think. Who's in better shape to start a freshman quarterback, Vanderbilt or Tennessee? 615-737-1025. That's 615-737-1025. Stay tuned. We're coming back with more of DVD. DVD continues here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Connor Nute. We'll be joined by Mitch Light to add to this discussion, along with some other college sports topics at 4:45. And then we've got some heavy Titans discussion on Cam Ward coming up during our 5 o'clock hour as we count down to the weekend here. And it is a fun weekend with the Memorial Day weekend coming up. So let's get to our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We asked the question, with both teams, Vanderbilt and Tennessee, likely to be playing the bulk of the games, if it goes the way they are looking forward to, freshman quarterbacks. It's harder to win with a freshman quarterback, especially win big in college football now. Probably harder than ever with NIL and older players. That seems to be the trend. So who's in better shape, Tennessee or Vanderbilt? Robert in Nashville texts in on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. He says, freshman quarterbacks, both teams are screwed. So, okay. Robert raining on the parade.
Yeah,
but
I don't think necessarily. Obviously, UT has, whether through recruiting or through the portal, they have in their minds upgraded their team. Now, how much upgrade is it going to be? Only the season will tell. And then obviously you look at Vanderbilt and what they did with their transfer portal. Because that's a lot of it nowadays, I believe. And tell me if you think this way, Willie and Connor, is that I don't think when you start grading teams, I think there's going to be more of an emphasis when you're looking at teams and how their recruiting class is. There's going to be more emphasis put toward the transfer portal, not necessarily, hey, you got the number one freshman recruiting class around. Yeah, but it's going to take a lot of those guys time to get on the field. Whereas if you look at the transfer portal recruiting class, it may be a lot of different. Why? Because you have guys that have played this game, majority of them, that have been starters, that are coming for programs. They may have had a lot of success in just coming to Vanderbilt because they can end their career in Vandy. They're getting paid a little bit more here at Vandy, and there's a place for them to come and start immediately. So I think it's going to be more now the transfer portal. How does your transfer portal looks compared to other teams? Not necessarily how does your recruiting class, meaning your incoming freshman, look?
It's a great point. I think Vanderbilt football has had enormous success with that. Basketball certainly had success. And it's interesting you mentioned that, D-Mace, because one of my questions for Mitch when we bring him on is, why has Vanderbilt baseball not done as well in the transfer portal? And so we'll get his thoughts on that. But you're right. And for example, a transfer they have, he hasn't really played a whole lot because Diego Pavia has stolen the show. But Blaze Berlowitz, who is, I don't know, at least 4 years older than Jared Curtis, a lot of Vanderbilt fans, a couple have texted in on our text line to say, right now Berlowitz is better. Well, he should be better. He's 22, maybe 23 years old by now, and Jared Curtis just got to the campus. So if if you're not better than Curtis now, you're never going to be. So that's a good thing for Berlowitz. It's a good thing for Vanderbilt. But at the same time, you would expect Jared Curtis to close the gap pretty quickly. Meanwhile, Tennessee's, their top two guys are both freshmen. So that is going to be the question for Josh Heupel, is who's ready to win right away, because you don't have time. Like, they have an early season game against Georgia Tech. I know that'll be a test, and they'll have to get through that game, and hopefully one or both of those guys will emerge and continue to get better. That's what you hope for by playing the freshmen. Because as you said, Derrick, a lot of people transfer in. They're older. They've already played 30, 40, in some cases, college football games. And so that gives you a leg up when you're bringing newcomers in there. 615-737-1025. I believe we've got Mark on the line. Is that right, Connor?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring Mark into the discussion here. Mark, welcome to the DVD.
Hey, what's up, Bill? Connor, you should have told Will and D-Mace I was on the line, man. We could have interrupted all this other stuff and brought me on in. You know I'm important, so help me out here, Connor. And Willie, the new name of that show is
are you?
DVD.
See, I see what you're doing, Mark. You're trying to get the young rookie. Connor's in the seat now. You're trying to get him to give you preferential treatment.
That's right. Because, see, I'm in the transfer portal. Hey, D-Mace, I'm here to make you smile. I'm in the transfer portal. Yeah, I'm in the transfer portal, Willie. And Willie, I got something to go over with you before I finish saying what I'm
I hate
saying.
to tell you this, Mark. Our budget for transfers at NIL is pretty limited.
Yeah, very
Unless
limited.
D-Mace is paying out of pocket.
And you know that ain't
okay,
happening.
Well, yeah, I know. Hey, D-Mace, come on now, man. Both y'all got
I love
money
you,
to
Mark.
help a man. I know I love you too, man. Hey, I'll gladly text you my routing and account
He's going to
number
pay you
while
in
we're on the
love.
line.
He's just not going to pay you in cash.
Yeah, I know. But hey, you know, man, y'all were talking. I'm gonna say a couple of things real quick. Willie, you know, you and D-Mace been talking about the transfer portal and the quarterbacks and Tennessee and Vanderbilt having freshmen. Well, you know, if you think back, Josh Heupel, he tried to get Sam Levitt from Arizona State because he was the number one quarterback out here, and they didn't give him enough money, so LSU got him. So, you know, Diego Pavia, he set the tone for Vanderbilt. You know, a big-time winner, big-time quarterback, elite athlete. You know, Vanderbilt, I'm sure they tried to find somebody in the portal. Just probably couldn't get it. But like you and D-May said, the portal is taking over. It doesn't matter if you got the number one recruiting class anymore. If you got guys that's got 20, 30 games under their belt, them the guys that's going to come in, they're going to get paid, especially with the quarterback. If there's some quarterbacks out there there's veteran type guys, they're getting 5-6 million from a lot of these places. So I see why a lot of this is going on and stuff, because it's a win now situation in college football. They don't give you time. It's turning into the NFL. It's not for long. I mean, you better come in and produce and do your thing. But Willie, before I go, I got two things I want to tell you. Don't forget about me, Willie. We talked about this. When you start making them picks this year, I need to be on that show with y'all. Think about me, Willie. You know, I really need you, commish, to do that for me. And two, Willie, we got a big putt tournament happening here in about 3 weeks. You and D-Mace and Connor, and y'all are all invited to it, man.
Well, thank you.
$50 fee to get in. 25 people coming. It's putt golf. I'm working out with my swing coach, Edgar Lane, and I got my mental health coach, Boudreaux Brown, helping me out and stuff. So I'm gonna be ready. I'm a three-time major champion, Willie. I have got 3 of those Bobby Knight type jackets in my closet, man. So I'm the club pro over there. So
as long as Tiger Woods not driving you there, you'll be all right.
Yeah, that's right, man. I didn't say Butch Harmon. I said Edgar Lane. That's putting coach. But hey, man, y'all have a good day. Hey, Adam, take your time coming back. Now I'm gonna call every day, so take your time coming back. Hey, y'all have a good weekend, man.
All right, you do the same, Mark.
Yep. See, man. See y'all, man.
Now he wants us to prepare for a putt tournament.
Exactly, man. Goodness, man. Mark is a man of the people.
I think he just needs to be my manager at this point.
Yeah, he could take you places, man. He could take you places. But yeah, Willie, as we, you know, I think a lot of this, whether it's UT or it's Vandy, a lot of this is going to be hinging on how can they position their quarterback, or how can they position their roster to help out or aid their young quarterback, whether it's UT doing it with theirs or Vandy doing it with Curtis. What team are they building around them?
Yes. Can they make their job easier and support the quarterback so not everything's on that kid's shoulders? That's a good point. All right, let's leave it there for now, and we will catch up with Mitch Light. We'll get his thoughts on this, and we'll bounce around. There was some interesting news that came out, or a brief report on Tyler Tanner and what some of the pro scouts think about him. All Vanderbilt fans are waiting to see if he's coming back to play for the Commodores for a third year. Also, Mitch is going to have some thoughts on the transfer portal on the college baseball front, particularly with Vanderbilt probably not going to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2005. So we'll hit him on that. So we've got a lot to discuss. So keep it right here on DVD, and then we'll get heavy into Cam Ward and the OTAs during our 5 o'clock hour. Stay tuned. You're listening to DVD here on 102.5 The Game. We continue on DVD here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, along with Derrick Mason and Connor Nute. Adam Dingin is on vacation this weekend. We go to our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We are about to be joined by Mitch Light. Let me see if I got this right. I'm remote today up at Denison University at Shorney Hall in the dormitory because I am super fan dad watching my son in the Super Regionals this weekend as Denison tries to get back to the Division III College World Series. So is Mitch Light on the line?
I'm here, Willie.
He is.
Got him.
All right. This is excellent news.
You just a technical whiz, Willie. I'm very impressed.
What's that?
I said you're a technical whiz getting me on. I'm very impressed with you.
Technical whiz. Yes, always have been. I learned it when I was in the Branscombe dorm way back in the day. You were not before. Were you a Branscombe guy, Mitch, or were you a different dorm at Vanderbilt?
Tolman Hall, unair conditioned. The last unair conditioned dorm at Vanderbilt. Some of the hottest months of my life. I have PTSD.
I'm sure that was
place.
very pleasant coming down south from New Jersey, going to high school here. But speaking of Vanderbilt,
so before we get started, I talked to Connor that his dad Rick used to umpire a lot of the games I coached with Gabe over at BSAA, and I'm kind of wishing we had the ABS challenge system back then. I think Gabe might have had a few more quality at bats, but you had to deal with what you had to deal with.
No rebuttal, Connor?
No, I mean, Gabe and I played with and against each other. But I think Rick Nute could use the ABS in his life is all I'll say.
It's there to help the umpires. It's not there to embarrass the umpires. It's there to help the umpires. And we do know this. I did watch Gabe enough to know he did know the strike zone. He was not afraid to be a patient hitter.
That was one of his strengths. Yeah. So but good luck to the Denison Big Red too, Willie.
Well, yeah, one win away from the College World Series. Let's see what happens. But Mitch, let me ask you what we've been kicking around during this hour, and that is in this day and age of college football, especially, it looks more and more like Vanderbilt and Tennessee might or will be starting the bulk of their games with freshman quarterbacks, and we're sort of just kicking around what are the challenges with that, and based on the expectations of each program, who's in better shape?
Well, it's very challenging. It's difficult. Bryce Underwood was number one recruit in the country last year at Michigan and struggled. Their offense struggled. Barrett Bachmeier, who was not a heralded recruit, was good at BYU. There really weren't that many true freshmen. I just think it's so difficult to read defenses. The jump from high school to college is we take for granted some of these veteran quarterbacks. A guy like Diego Pavia, who was in his fifth year, but in that system for so much, knew exactly what to do, the checks and all that stuff, where really good defensive coordinators can really make life difficult for a true freshman quarterback. And just, you see the term, seeing ghosts and all that stuff. It's just going to be very difficult for Jared Curtis and Brendan Faison, or Faison Brendan, I always get his name wrong, at Tennessee. So, supporting cast, who's better, we don't know yet. Vanderbilt had a better team last year. I think that was quarterback driven because Pavia was so good. The one thing about Vanderbilt, it's a new look offensive line too. So if Tennessee does go that route, they'll lean on the running game, I'm sure, just like Vanderbilt would like to. But it's not an enviable position in the short term. But if you've got the right guy, which both schools, 5-star quarterbacks, it can obviously pay dividends in the long term. But in this day and age with fans in college athletics, we all want success immediately. So fans are going to have to be patient with both guys.
This was another topic earlier that we want your input on. Happened to see Nate Bargatze on his continuing tour to promote his movie, but unique situation today. He brought Jared Curtis with him. I don't know who planned it or if Clark Lee had any input, but Pat McAfee show, pretty big audience. And there's Jared Curtis, a true freshman, hasn't ever played. All kinds of expectations and excitement about him coming. And, of course, the connection to Nate Bargatze is a well-told story. How would you feel about that before he's done much on the field, getting that kind of exposure? Because the exposure to the program is one thing, Mitch, and that's great. but you don't want to put any extra expectations on the player itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like, in the past, something like this would never happen. Coaches are control freaks. In this day and age where the guys are making a lot of money and they're being paid by outside sources, and a lot of times some of their media opportunities are from outside sources. And so the school really has no say in it. I don't know what the situation here is now. I do agree that it's kind of putting him in not a difficult spot, but it's a huge audience. What if he says something dumb? We all say dumb stuff, but he's like not that used to being in front of a microphone. But I think the positives in this case far outweigh any potential negatives. And I'm sure I would think Clark Lee would be on board. Again, you can put on that show talking about Vanderbilt football to that audience, it's a win for the program. And you can't hide, you can't pretend that Jared Curtis is just a 4-star quarterback or a 3-star quarterback from Paducah, Kentucky, and he's just another guy. He's not. And they knew what they were getting when they convinced him to come to Vanderbilt. So you gotta roll with it. I think you can't say no to that opportunity.
We'll talk with Mitch Light of The Athletic, talking Vandy's sports. Mitch, now we've seen sort of this transition with older rosters. We've seen it more so, and it's been prevalent, and it's been, you saw the fruits of the labor very quickly. Look at Michigan's team. They won a national championship, and you look at their roster and they're older individuals. So we've seen it, and I think we're used to it possibly on a basketball level, but on a football level, do you think they're going to start prioritizing more? Because we understand before it was, how does your recruiting class look? Are you the best recruiting class in the country, but you got a bunch of freshmen that you expect that some of them may play and some of them may not, but you're basing it on, 5-star and 4-star. Whereas now you see teams choosing to go the route of transfers, portal guys, and then basing their team based upon that. Now, no longer are they, looking at their recruiting class and saying, okay, this is what we're going to lay our hat on. It seems like it's more so now they're going to the transfer portal, and this is how teams are building. This is how programs are building their team each and every year.
Yeah, I think it's dependent on the program, but clearly teams are trying to get old. And you've seen that with Vanderbilt on both lines of scrimmage. They basically rebuilt their offensive line every year with transfers. Now, it can be dangerous because that's a position that relies on continuity and chemistry, but they've been 2 for 2. Their offensive line 2 years ago, I'd say, was average. Last year, maybe a little slightly above that. So I think ideally as a program, it's a balance. You still want to develop your guys. I think the programs that recruit at a higher level, the Georgias, Alabamas, Ohio States, they're always going to have their program guys who grow up within the program. And by the time they're 3rd year, 4th year guys, you definitely want them starting. Other programs that don't recruit at that level, you're still trying to develop, but you're going to miss out on, you're not going to hit on every 3-star you get. So if you try to develop your recruiting class of 3 stars and sprinkle in some 4 stars, and then you figure out, hey, these guys are not good enough for us to compete in the SEC or the Big Ten, you've got to go to the portal. And when you do that, you've got to get older guys to plug those holes. One thing that's interesting, we saw it starting this year, though, is there just aren't the volume of older guys isn't going to be as prevalent because we're past the COVID years. We're past the 5th year of playing 6-year eligibility guys. Vanderbilt's offensive line the last couple of years had plenty of guys who in a different era would not have been eligible. So teams that have relied on that, they got to be wary because I don't think the pool of SEC, Big Ten, power conference caliber guys is going to be in future years what we've seen in the past couple of years.
Now, if Jared Curtis wins the starting job and starts day one, is this team, based upon what Coach Lee has done through the portal as well as obviously recruiting out of high school, are they in position to help a young quarterback grow as the season go on, or is this a situation where he's going to take a lot of lumps this year because this team is not quite like the team of last year?
Well, that's a great point. And I would argue that last year, Pavia he not bailed them out. That might not be the right term, but he was so much the engine that drove that offense that if you put an average quarterback in that offense. They would probably be a decent offense, but remember, this is a team that led the nation in yards per play, which to me is like one of the most important stats. It's just so it just tells you how good he was. And another thing, Vanderbilt had one guy drafted. That's just insane from a 10-2 SEC team. Like the Iowa team they played in the bowl game, I think had 8 guys drafted. Vanderbilt had none or one, and he didn't even play in the bowl game. So the point is that it's not a program that's like oozing with elite NFL talent. They've done a very good job coaching them up and developing and all that. So I do think they're going to ask Jared Curtis to do some things next year. Like he's going to have to make some plays. It's not going to be a strictly game manager. They've got decent running backs. I don't think they've got great running backs. A lot of it obviously is going to depend on the offensive line and how that develops. But I don't think you have a guy like Jared Curtis and you just ask him to hand the ball off all day. They're going to ask him to make some plays.
Now, Tyler Tanner, obviously, he still hasn't decided on what he was going to do. There was an article that came out today that sort of ranked guys on should they go back to college or should they pursue their dream of playing in the NBA. And he didn't get favorable marks from those that have been watching him, I guess, in sort of this combine setting, and say that he should. And I don't take it as a bad thing. I just take it as hey, you can play, but you're just not ready yet. Yeah,
like I think all signs point to Tyler Tanner coming back to college. It's been very quiet from his camp. Like there's no I haven't heard any he just hasn't announced he's definitely doing this. But I think most of us think he's coming back. And by all accounts, he did not play great in those 5-on-5 scrimmages. There's a couple of things, like he's obviously not going to get taller, which is one of his main issue, but he can get quite a bit stronger. He got a lot stronger between his freshman and his sophomore year, and I think that helped him with his shooting, made his legs stronger. But his shooting still wasn't great this year. In SEC games, I think he shot like 32%. I think that can get a lot better. So I think he can improve a lot if he comes back. Now, he might just be dead set on, I want to play in the NBA. I don't care if I'm a second rounder. This is my dream. Like, that might be the case. We don't know. But I think all rational signs point to him coming back to college. But I guess, we'll find out in the next week.
Mitch Light is with us from The Athletic. And, Mitch, we've had a lot of portal-themed stuff, as we always do. It's become such a big part of college sports. And just from the Vanderbilt prism, we've discussed, if Tyler Tanner comes back, it looks like Mark Byington has done another good job grabbing a few of the guys back. He lost a lot of seniors, but it looks like he's gone out and picked up some other guys that look like they've had a lot of productive games in other places.
Yep.
And also Clark Lee, we discussed his formula. Tim Corbin, I think by his own admission, after they lost the other day to Florida, he had a real thoughtful answer to a question of, tell me where you are in this whole process. Because we know Tim Corbin had a tremendous formula, almost unmatched, of finding great recruits and developing them from high school age up to the time they were draft eligible. And he wants that story to continue. He wants to go to their weddings. He wants to be lifelong friends. And we know that gets jumbled up with all that's happening right now. So why do you think, or tell me what you think the issues are of him trying to figure out? He said, I'm going to figure this bleep out, was the quote that jumped out to me, of how to use the portal to your advantage. What do you think's missing there?
I think it's a little bit of a false, they do use the portal, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with Tim Corbin. Obviously, he knows, but some people say, Vanderbilt doesn't use the portal. Last year, for instance, their 2 of their 3 starting pitchers, Connor Fennell and Cody Bowker, were transfers. Sawyer Hawks, their closer, was a transfer. They had a transfer commitment from Joseph Zerua, who was the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year, from Michigan State, who changed his mind basically after a Michigan State alum came in with a huge NIL package for him. This year, Mike Mancini, Logan Johnston were 2 transfers. Carter Johnstone was in the opening day lineup. I think they had 5 or 6 transfers on their team. Nate Taylor, they thought he was an opening day Sunday starter, started the first 5 Sundays. You can say that was a poor evaluation because he ended up not having a good year. But it's not like they don't use the portal. They have not signed the top 10, top 15-ish portal guys that you see at LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Maybe that's not wanting to spend the money, whatever, or for whatever reason. Maybe that's what Tim Corbin's talking about, plugging some holes where they no doubt about it portal, ace on a Friday night, which is difficult to do. So I don't, I think that the lineup was good this year. We all know the offensive improvements they made under Jason Esposito. I think from a numbers standpoint, they're going to have to go to the portal for the pitching staff. I think the freshman core of pitchers were good and will continue to develop, but they need some more known commodities next year. They can't just rely or hope that some of these freshman guys make the jump. And obviously, no one wants to make excuses, but health was a big factor in the demise of the pitching. So, I mean, we all know Tim Corbin's very emotional. That was after the game, immediately after the game. I think he'll sit back, come back, meet with his staff, and I don't think they're going to panic or anything. They're just going to make some key personnel decisions. There'll be some guys not asked back, and they'll definitely go to the portal to try and fortify a few spots.
Mitch, great stuff as always. Have a great weekend, and stay in the air conditioning so you're not reminded of your freshman year at Vanderbilt.
Thank you very much, and go Big Red.
All right, go Big Red indeed. All right, that's Mitch Light from The Athletic. Joins us to talk some college sports. When we come back, we'll get into the Titans OTAs. Derrick is ready to go, and we're going to talk about some of the things that Cam Ward looks like he's up to here. We talked about the weight loss earlier. We'll get back into that, and also just how that is going to play itself out on the field. What are some of the things that we're looking for with that? So stay tuned. The final hour of the show is coming up next here on DVD 102.5 The Game. Teammates Vingen and Donick coming down the home stretch. Final hour of the week here on this Memorial Day weekend. A lot of you hopefully have already got the jump start on it, despite the rain that's popping around here. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derrick Basin here with you.
Willie,
joined by Connor Nute behind the glass. Adam Vingen finishing up vacation. Will be back with us next week.
Willie, I don't know if you saw this story, but it came out a few days ago, and I know you've been, watching Mahoney in the tournament. But did you see this story? And it brought it. Mitch brought it to my attention, not necessarily the article, but when I asked him the question about the whole, recruiting and portal guys. Did you see what Will Wade is doing to LSU basketball?
No.
It's unbelievable. Here's the headline. Florida Tide Golden blast LSU Will Wade for recruiting pro players, not what college athletics is about. Now, we saw this with Alabama last year, and their guy, the center, was able to play a few games until he was ruled ineligible. Right. But it seems like Will Wade has chosen to, it said not only is LSU reportedly preparing to give a 25-year-old guard Yam Mador out of Israel $5 million to sign, but Tuesday news of the Tigers signing former St. John Star and G Leaguer R.J. Louise Jr. further added to the heightened length at which Wade is daring the NCAA to act. Like, Alabama just went through this last year, and he was ruled after, I think he played 5 games, ineligible. I don't understand what we are talking about, where like this is blatant. Like, why would you even do this? I know you want to win, but you clearly saw what Alabama tried to do, and eventually they couldn't get away with it. And then you went and turned around and doubled down. And now you're trying to get away with the same thing that Alabama did. When is the NCAA going to step in and say, no, if you've signed a contract or if you played in the G League, no, whatsoever, you can't come back to college basketball whatsoever?
It certainly sounds like Will Wade being Will Wade. It doesn't surprise me in the least.
And I meant to ask
Mitch
about that.
Yeah, I think it's something to watch. I think there are certain coaches, and Will Wade is at the top of the list, that are under the assumption that there are no rules and that all of these fences are going to be busted down if they haven't been already. And so he wants to be at the forefront of it, if and when they get the green light to get players like this, who have that designation of signing an NBA deal or being a professional. Because there are a lot of coaches that say, well, what's the difference between a guy in the G League who isn't making it in the NBA, he's not happy where he's at, and a guy who's in Europe playing in some professional league, who already has been recruited and coming over and being eligible to play in NCAA basketball. I do think it's kind of a blurry line. That's the argument generally in a lot of stages, but it's a bad look, because here in the States, we're like, well, that guy turned pro. He can't come play college, because that's always been the rule. But it's been a lot, it's a little different when a guy comes over from pick a country, Italy or France or Argentina or whatever, or, Eastern European country, for all intents and purposes, they've been pro, but nobody's paying attention. So nobody cares. They just come over. Does this guy help us win games?
Yeah, it's just, to me, I think, why would you even try? Listen, granted, he didn't play any games, but he got drafted in the second round. And this is what, we kind of sort of talked about with Tyler Tanner. Is he going to, stay committed to, living out his dream and playing in the NBA this year? And he's going to go and say, hey, forget it. I'm just going to try my, I'm a roll the dice. And even if I get drafted in the second round, so be it. I'm going to go there and I'm going to prove that I can play. So I know Tyler has to deal with that, and he will. And I'm sure that if he decides to go and put his name in the NBA draft, he will stay there. He will not then try to come back to Vandy. But when you have a guy that has been drafted, that got traded, like, You had your opportunity, like Tanner. You had your opportunity to say, hey, listen, I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to wait another year and I'm going to go to college and get better. And then I'm going to come back. But no, you knew exactly what you were doing. You knew the moment that you put your name in the hat, you got drafted and everything else, that your eligibility as far as playing was gone. But now they keep testing the limits of the NCAA, which they need to get up off their rear ends and do something, because they should have done away with it last year with Alabama trying to do it, but they didn't. And now you have Will Wade trying to do it again.
Well, they've got the rules, right?
Yes.
The NCAA, they've got the rules, but everybody challenges them in the courts, and they get the injunction.
That's what's going to happen.
They did for Chambliss. They tried the injunction. So there's a constant fight of trying to break down the rules to change them.
This is just like, man, and I'm happy that we're sort of getting past the COVID years. And like Mitch said, you're going to see fewer as we continue to go. You're going to see fewer of those older guys that have played in different places coming to universities. So hopefully we're moving away from that. But this right here, they need to completely do away with this. There should be a hard and fast rule. The minute you get drafted, it is over. You cannot come back to college to play.
I hope they get it sorted out, because I agree. You sound exactly like John Calipari, because he has made a passionate speech about those very things, and he's got some people behind him for sure. But then you've got the Will Wades of the world that are looking to bust down those barriers in the name of winning. It's self-preservation, right? If you're a coach and you feel like you need these guys, you're going to push the envelope if you think you can get a player or two that can help you win. So that's something we'll watch. But Will Wade's always going to be the renegade, no doubt about it. It's kind of funny because Calipari, I think, used to be considered kind of a renegade, but the times have changed.
Because he would get a bunch of one and dones.
Yeah, oh yeah, he
But
had
now-
that system down. Now
Will
the system
Wade-
changed, and he doesn't like it.
Will Wade is getting the duns, and he's trying to bring them
Already
back.
done coming back. Yeah,
Exactly. Absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, D-Mace, I want to get more into your thoughts on Cam Ward, Brian Dable, and now this theme of the week that we heard about yesterday for the first time, that Cam Ward not only has repaired his injured shoulder, he's looking good, he's feeling good. He thinks he's going to be a little quicker, a little faster, and a little more durable. But another thing, Jeremy Fowler from ESPN tweeted this out to sort of supplement what Teron Davenport was writing on ESPN.com, kind of putting together some of the things that Cam said yesterday in his availability. He said Cam Ward's lighter frame and dietary changes could help his running ability in a Brian Dable offense. Take a look at Dable and the quarterbacks he's had. Josh Allen, 7.2 rushing attempts per game, 2021. And then in 2022, Daniel Jones of the Giants, 7.5 rushing attempts per game. Jackson Dart last year, 7.2 rushing attempts per game. Now, Derrick, we talked a lot last year about Cam Ward as a runner. And not only as a runner to try to get rushing yards, but also just being elusive in the pocket, shifting in the pocket, getting yourself away from pressure, and being able to keep your feet set and make good throws. Tell me your first thought, number one, on being lighter and quicker on paper. How much do you think that can help him just be able to be on balance and have better mechanics, first off, before we get to the Dable part of it?
I think TD explained it yesterday, and I'm not going to get fully, get it right and say it verbatim. But when you talk about, the foot movement and the hips and the release, last year he probably felt that he was a tad bit too slow. And, the first thing I think athletes go to, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I did the same thing too. When you're done with your first season and you think, man, I just felt slow and I just felt like heavy, the first thing you want to do is drop good weight. Just drop that bad weight, drop bad weight and add on good weight. And a lot of times you see when that player comes back and he stays dedicated to that in the off season, he comes back a quicker player. Not necessarily, he may not be, 100% better than he was last year, but you can see the quickness has changed. You can see his body makeup has changed. So it typically helps out guys. And you're talking about like skill guys, receivers, running backs, DBs, guys like that like to drop weight, even linebackers, because nowadays, especially in a solid defense, you got to be able to move sideline to sideline. You can't be a heavy linebacker. I saw Ray Lewis go through it where he dropped weight because he felt that he was too heavy. He dropped weight, and you saw the quickness in him as he started to get older. It's the same thing with Cam Ward. The first thing, like I said, you look at is how can I get quicker? How can I, accelerate, my processing, whether it be mental or physical? Well, physical, I need to drop some of this bad weight. That's what Cam did. Hopefully that helps out with the footwork, allows him to get a little bit quicker with the arm motion, his release, a lot quicker release. And then and we talked about this last year, Willie, a lot of times it was like he was buffering when he was running. It was slow. I stole that from Connor yesterday, but it just seemed like he was a tad bit slow. And we talked about this yesterday.
Oh, yes.
And
it was
last
very
year.
noticeable.
Exactly. And my thing was, well, he's a capable runner because I saw it in college, but he does look a tad bit slow trying to figure out how to get out of certain situations at this level. And I'm sure he saw the same thing. So that to me will help him as well. It will help in that aspect as well. Being able to be a little lighter on your feet, being able to get away from those defenders a lot quicker, because you don't have to be fast. You just have to be quick as a quarterback to be able to, get away from those arm tackles or get away from those guys that are diving at your feet in the pocket.
I think that's a great point. It's the quickness early on.
Yes.
I think once he builds, okay, take me, not known as a speedster at all on the basketball court or on the baseball field. But once I got accelerated, I wasn't slow. The problem is,
getting accelerated.
like if I'm trying to steal second base, those first couple steps are everything,
yes.
right? And that's where I was not as good. Whereas I'm sure wide receivers the same way. There's guys that I'm sure watch play that once they got full throttle, they could fly, but it's too late, right? Because you got to have those first couple steps. Boom, you got to make the play is made in those steps, and that's where I think Cam got in trouble. Sometimes he just wasn't able to get away from that first guy where you're thinking you could see the space in front of him. If he gets by that first guy, that arm or that guy coming in strong on the rush, he could have a big gain there, but he couldn't get going quite quick enough.
No, I mean, in a lot of this, is, how can I get better the next season in order to help the team? And I'm sure once the season ends, it was, for him, it was like, man, I finished the season, but I'm injured. Now I got to rehab. But in my rehab, how do I still make sure that I'm maximizing my ability to get better as a player? Well, drop some weight. I'm sure he has a nutritionist. I'm sure he has people around him telling him, hey, listen, you can be a little bit quicker here if you do this. And he's chosen to do those things. And that's just like any player. You talked about yourself. If you drop weight when you're playing, you may not have that, long speed, or you may not have that 4.3 speed, but that first step, like you said, that first step is everything in stealing bases. Maybe you didn't have that quickness that first year, but then you came back, you worked on it, and then bam, it's a lot quicker than what it was the previous year. Same thing to go for Cam Ward. He wasn't as quick stepping out of the pocket, but this year, because he's dropped some weight, his mechanics are a little bit better. Now he's able to anticipate it. Now he's getting out of the pocket a lot quicker.
Okay, when we come back, I want to get the Daboll part of this equation in there. You heard the numbers. Josh Allen back when Daboll was with the Bills, a younger version of Josh Allen, albeit, but of course, we know how Josh Allen does it. If you got him on your fantasy team, you're getting rushing yards and passing yards. He's great at both. Daniel Jones with the Giants, and then Jackson Dart last year. We're going to ask the question, with Daboll running the offense, are we going to see Cam Ward running more? We'll ask D. Mason get his take on that in our next segment. So if you want to weigh in, do you want Cam Ward running? Do you think he can do it? 615-737-1025. Is this going to be one of the things that has Cam Ward taking a step forward in year number 2? 615-737-1025. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Stay tuned. We're coming back with DVD. DVD continues here on this Friday afternoon as we count down towards Memorial Day weekend. A lot of you have already started the clock. I know how you guys roll. You get out of there early if you can, if you didn't already take the day off. So, D-Mace and I have got you covered as you drive to wherever you're going. Everybody be safe, of course. 615-737-1025. We want to get your input on Cam Ward, now matched up with Brian Dable. Thinner, leaner, hopefully quicker and more durable. And also, is he going to run a little bit more? So when you heard those numbers, Derrick, Dable's quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Jackson Dart, and then a younger Josh Allen years ago. What were your thoughts? Do you think Cam Ward in that kind of running total could be in the cards here, or do you think he's not that good of a runner like those other guys?
No, I think he has the ability to run. I think, him not being as heavy as he was last year, that will help him in his ability to get outside the pocket. And I don't think it's necessarily, about, running. I hope that Dabo don't have as many. I hope he's not running, called runs 7-8 times a game, because we talked a lot last year about, Jackson Dart and his troubles with concussions, or being, brought to the sideline to be evaluated for a concussion. And that was in the Dabo offense. Now, Cam's not that type of runner as far as how aggressive he is, because I think Jackson Dart, if you're talking about running, I think Jackson Dart is more like Will Levis than he is like Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward, he doesn't look to run, but if he has to run, he will. He tries to buy time. And I don't think Jackson Dart was like that, nor was Will Levis. They saw a lane and they went and they ran tough, and it helps out, because that's something else that the defense has to prepare for. But we also saw the bad of it, whether it was with Josh Allen or with Jackson Dart last year, the potential of opening up your quarterback for concussions. Listen, we've already seen Cam on the turf with the shoulder injury. I'm pretty sure Titans fans do not want to see him getting evaluated inside of the tent every 3 or 4 games because of Dabo and the way he runs his offense. But I don't think he's going to put Cam, because I think when you're evaluating these quarterbacks, you see certain things that you can do in your offense with them. Some things you could do a little bit more, and some things you can't. I think the running part, when you looked at Josh Allen, 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, Jackson Dart, he was a tough runner in college, so he's accustomed to that. That's not Cam Ward. Not to say he can't run, but to put him in harm's way 7-8 times on design runs, I don't like that. I really don't. Now, there may be a game where it's called for, but I'm not trying to average 7 or 8 called runs per game with my second-year quarterback. That our success hinges on whether he develops as a quarterback or not.
It doesn't specify in the stats that Jeremy Fowler gave that those were called runs.
Yeah.
But like you said, there might be a couple where, it is a design, maybe it's a pass run option where running could be part of it, and then there's other just scrambles where you run. I agree with you, Derrick. I think that's a big thing. I don't think I want Cam Ward running that many times because of the durability, and I don't think he's the same caliber of runner as the other 3 guys. And so I'm really curious about that as Daboll evaluates Cam Ward. Can he be that kind of guy? Maybe he'll surprise us. Maybe he'll be better than he was. And look, if he's effective, that's a good thing. But it's that double-edged sword. And I think we can all think back to some examples fresh in our mind. If you watch Jackson Dart, he had some great plays running around out there, but man, he also took some shots. And I feel like over time that is going to catch up to him.
Yeah, and I'm sure Dabo and listen, it's not just Dabo. You're talking about Amy, you're talking about Borgonzi. All these, they know that the success of their team, just like any other team out there, the true success of your team is your quarterback. And you don't want to put him, again, you don't have to look 10 years ago. Just look at last season in Jackson Dart. And we talked about this on our show with Jackson Dart being evaluated for concussion or not. Now, again, were they all designed runs? Probably not. But still, I don't want, neither does the organization, Cam Ward going in the tent every 3 or 4 games getting evaluated for concussion. And a lot of that is going to hinge on how well the offensive line gels, and will he even have to be put in a position where he has to scramble and run more than he should. Jackson Dart was in that situation last year, and Josh Allen was in that situation when he was young, where his offensive line wasn't as good and he had to run to get first downs.
615-737-1025. We'd love to hear your input on this. What is the right amount of times for Cam Ward to be running? Do you think he could be better as a runner in his second year than he was in his first year, where he clearly was a little slow? 615-737-1025. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wes from Hermitage, weighing in on our last segments, setting the table of this. He goes, okay, guys, I'm lost. Why is Cam Ward stealing second base? Well, Wes, come on, you're a better listener than that. We were using other examples of other sports, of where that quick twitch, that first step is everything. And we're talking about my inability to steal second base as a college baseball player. Wes, I know you're smarter than that. Come on, Wes, you're one of our best listeners. Keep up. Listening skills. It must be, but maybe he started the Memorial Day weekend a little bit early.
Yeah, I guess so. You kind of listening. You're hearing us, but you ain't listening. Or is it you're listening, but you're not hearing? One of the two.
Cam Ward is not stealing second base.
Cam Ward is not stealing second.
In one ear, out the other.
Absolutely. What we do is just try to draw some correlations between one sport and another. And it's true, whether you're stealing base or you're trying to get out of the pocket, that first step is everything.
Ron texted on our text line, says, I don't want Cam to be a runner because the injury rate goes up tremendously. I want him to be able to run when he needs to, or when the opportunity presents itself. The less he runs, the less we have to worry about the injuries. And he adds, I want Cam like Tannehill. Tannehill wasn't a runner, but could run if he needed to. I think Tannehill was a very underrated runner. If you take a look at his stats as a runner, I think he really got good at it, D-Mace, of knowing when to go. And when he did, he made very important plays.
Yeah, he did. He was one of those guys that, again, I think like Cam, I can run, but I choose not to run. But when I do run, I can be effective at it. I think Cam, when he does run, and we saw it because last year we looked at him, especially for the first, what was it, Willie, maybe 9 or 10 games. It just seemed like he never wanted to leave the pocket. He didn't want to run. But it seemed like the last 6 or 7 games, you saw his ability to get out the pocket and get first downs with his legs. So he can do it. I just think that he wanted to prove to everyone that he can play within the pocket and he can make some things happen within the pocket without first thinking, oh, the pocket's collapsing, let me run with the football. Whereas he should have done that a few times, but he didn't. This year, I think you will see a different Cam Ward, not necessarily him running more, but him being able to get out of the pocket and, buy a little bit more time to either run when he can or throw the ball down the field.
Yeah, so let's call it escapability.
Escapability, yes.
That is a slightly different category than him just being a runner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something to watch for, because I do think he's got to improve really in both, but the escapability will be big if he can get better in that area. Now, Wes has responded. I knew he would. Wes goes, hey, guys, I just tuned in. I heard you wrong. Sorry. I thought Ward was going to Deion Sanders route, playing NFL and Major League Baseball. No, we were not doing that, Wes. But thank you for listening, as usual. So, Connor, what's the optimum amount of rushing attempts per game for Cam Ward in your mind?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to see too many design runs, because I think you guys both make an interesting point and factual point that the injury rate goes up. The quarterback profile I have in mind for him in terms of a Brian Daboll scheme is kind of similar to what he used with Daniel Jones when the Giants were a playoff team that one year. And Daniel Jones kind of resurged his career before it plummeted again, and then he went to Indianapolis and resurged it. What people are looking at, maybe not don't understand. Let me try that again. What people need to understand is Cam Ward is masterful at navigating around the pocket. He's capable of moving swiftly around the pocket, not as much outside, but using his legs to create space and find an open pathway to one of his receivers. I think that's what losing this weight is going to help him do, is become more nimble in the pocket. And if he has to escape, I think it's similar to Daniel Jones and Ryan Tannehill, where he can run. And like D-May says, he might not want to run, but if he needs to, he can run, he can escape, he can get some momentum and some yardage there. But I think Cam Ward's strength comes from his arm play, and especially reading across the middle of those mid to longer range gains. I think he needs to work on the deep ball a little bit. It's kind of what we've been hearing from OTAs. But in terms of his running ability, yeah, I think he has the ability to do so. But I would prefer if he is creating space in the pocket. And I don't mind one or two design runs here and there. And if he has to create his own space and scramble if a play is busted or something like that, I'm okay with that. But I don't want the Jackson Dart route of we're going to run this 7 or 8 times, because I think that increases likelihood of an injury in lower body or maybe even concussion.
Well, you know what Titan fans are saying now, because we heard it the day after the game when he got injured. Why is he running? Right. Why is he running? But before then, it was like, why isn't he running?
Yeah.
Never
satisfied.
Exactly. So for Titan fans, it's and I get it, because you don't want your quarterback to get hurt, especially not the last game of the season. You don't want him to get hurt. But that's what Titan fans were saying after, at that Monday after the game. Why was he running? At the end of the season, why is he running? He gets hurt the first time, you get a design run, he gets hurt. I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case moving forward. But if you, like Connor said, if you have too many of those, then you do open your quarterback up for a higher risk of getting injured.
Look, D-Mace, I want to go back to your time with Steve McNair. I thought another thing that maybe Steve McNair was underrated on, because he was obviously a great runner. If he took off running, not only was he fast, but he was so strong, he could break tackles, and we can visualize a lot of great plays he made just running the ball. But he was, I thought, one of the best I've ever seen at the threat of the run, but also knowing exactly when to stop and make the throw. He draws the coverage in. He draws the tackler. Sometimes it was a spy, sometimes it was just somebody covering somebody else, but he could see those guys, and as soon as they came towards him, boom, he could make the pass. I would love to see Cam Ward continue to make strides there.
I think he will. Mac was just that was in him. It was a big part of who he was as a quarterback. He had the big arm, and if you gave him some space, he was going to get up the field, and it was hard to bring him down. So that was sort of who he was. And he didn't benefit. He benefited from a lot, but then a lot of times that's what caused him to not be available sometimes, and Steve did everything he possibly could to make sure he was out there. And 90% of the time or 95% of the time he was. But then there were some times, because of the running, that it was just too much. You don't want Cam to be that. And he's nowhere near built the way Steve was, and Steve was built to run it. But after a while, it's like, you can't run. We need you as our quarterback. But I think Cam is going to figure it out. I believe, and I know, and I'm pretty sure everyone else knows how much the franchise depends on him as far as, what this team is going to be next year, this upcoming season. And if he's out anytime, you got Mitch Trubisky behind him, but Mitch Trubisky isn't Cam Ward. He isn't the guy that you believe that's going to usher your team into this new era of Titan football.
Yeah, I think if you think back, if you've been a Titans fan for a long time, you could picture two of the better Titans quarterbacks, maybe the two best Titans quarterbacks in their time in Tennessee, Tannehill and McNair, both had a really good feel for when it was time to run. Be cautious, be careful on when you go and when it's time to throw. So we'll see if Cam Ward can make strides in that area. All right, when we come back, we will wrap up the show, and we will look ahead to the weekend in sports. Look at the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. So we've been telling you all day long on some of our reports, but a huge, huge game in Denver tonight, as the team that's been the best all year long, the Avalanche, are facing a 1-0 deficit, and they're playing without Cale Makar for a second straight game. Big, big game tonight over in Colorado. We'll tell you about it, plus We'll get the take on the NBA playoffs as that continues to unfold as well, and some of the other things going on. Stay tuned. Final segment of DVD for the week coming up. Ah, yes, the final stretch, final segment of the week here on this Memorial Day weekend. Everybody have a great, safe Memorial Day. And of course, remember why it is Memorial Day, why we're not working. So always keep your mind on those that gave the ultimate price. We all know how that goes. And we're such a, I love our community and how we recognize those people every year and across the country for sure. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason here on DVD,
Willie,
Connor Nute here as well.
Willie, so
And
what
go
do
ahead,
you,
Derrick.
no, what do you have going on this weekend, man? Because I know you're going to be there. Hopefully, they can get some games in tomorrow. But you're going to be there through the weekend. So what you got planned, man? It's a holiday weekend, man. Outside of baseball. You and Mahoney?
I'm hoping for the celebration. I'm hoping for a big celebration to get on to the World Series. But
because you have family in that area, don't you?
The weather's very iffy up here. I don't know what's the forecast in Nashville.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Some rain down there too.
It's the same thing, Willie. It isn't as cold. It's not cold at all, but we're getting the same type of rain. Same type of rain. You have family in that area, don't you?
I do. My aunt and uncle live about 40 minutes from the campus, and so we'll hang out. We'll see when they get these games in, and then we'll go from there. No hardcore plans for sure.
Oh, cool.
But just looking forward to kicking back a little bit.
It's gonna be a wet weekend.
Yes, yeah, it will. And so hopefully there'll be some baseball mixed in there somewhere. All right, so let's look ahead. This is part of what we love about Memorial Day weekend. Huge playoff games in the NBA and the NHL, and of course, college baseball. The SEC tournament will be wrapping up, and the selections will be made on Memorial Day. The brackets will be announced. So that's the time of the year that we're talking here. So let's start with the NBA. As you know, tonight you've got the Thunder and the Spurs. You got some banged up guys for the Spurs. Fox hasn't played, and now they've got some other guys banged up. But Wemby comes home after the Spurs got the split with the Thunder, the defending champions who had not lost the game. And the series is tied at 1 apiece. So what are you looking for tonight in that one, Derrick?
Oh, man, he needs some help. He does. Wemby needs help. Connor and I talked about this yesterday at the beginning of the show. I've watched San Antonio play, but during the season, a few games here and there, but didn't really sit and intently watch them. And now I am. Without De'Aaron Fox, they have trouble, especially late in the game, at ball handling because Castle's not a true point guard. He's more of a 2 guard, and he makes some questionable decisions. He gets out of control at times. He dribbles too much, and that's not helping San Antonio. They had, I think, 12, 13 turnovers in the first half, and a lot of them was because of Castle. And then they had some at the end of toward the end of the game that were on him. So they need De'Aaron Fox bad. One, to control the tempo. He's a veteran player and he's a good player. And a guy that can really handle the basketball. Because once they get that, I think it's going to be it's going 7 games. But I wouldn't be surprised if De'Aaron Fox comes back that San Antonio doesn't take the 2 home games and then go back to OKC trying in the series.
I think it's going to be 2 great games. San Antonio is favored by 2.5 as I look at ESPN's website here. So let's get the Kentucky aficionado involved here. Connor, is Fox, does he have a chance to play in this game? I know he has not played in the first 2 games. Do you think he dresses tonight?
I hope so, because like D-May said, Wemby needs help, and he needs someone at the point guard position to kind of set the tempo. Stephon Castle is not a guard, or a point guard, that is. He's a winger, in my opinion. But Fox is so controlled with the ball. He uses his speed to his advantage, and he can cut inside and, score easy layups, or he can use his passing ability to find Wemby, which is what I think thrives. But it seems like De'Aaron Fox has been day-to-day for like a week and a half now. So
yeah,
I feel like they're going to.
In fact, I think I heard Wembanyama say after game 1 that he expected, just in the aftermath of that incredible game, he said that, we haven't had Fox. We got to pick him up. We think we're going to have him back for game 2. He kind of said it in passing, but he did not play in game 2.
Yeah, it sounds like he's close. I would expect, again, I'm not an insider, but I would think that he would probably be on the floor for warmups, especially playing at home in San Antonio. And then maybe he'll be a game time decision. But I feel like if he is in tonight, that changes the complexion of the game. That changes the offense for San Antonio. And I think these are 2 offenses that can go tick for tack. They can bounce off of each other. You've seen it in the first 2 games. It seems like neither one can really create too much separation without the other one coming back and making it a ball game. So I think this is going to be a fun one. I think home environment's going to play a deep factor into this one. San Antonio is a crazy environment in the playoffs, and OKC is too. But I think Yeah, I think we can all agree that this series is probably going to go to 7 games just because I think they're so evenly matched. But if De'Aaron Fox is in today, I think that changes the complexion of the game for San Antonio.
How do you figure out who to root for, Connor, with all the Kentucky guys? You got SGA playing, of course, for the Thunder. So all these Wildcats from the Calipari are scattered about the league. Who do you pick out to root for?
It's hard because you got SGA and Cason Wallace are playing for OKC. You have De'Aaron Fox and Keldon Johnson on the Spurs. And then over in the East, you have Karl Anthony Towns on the Knicks. So I'm just kind of rooting for individual players. I'm rooting for their success. And if we get to the finals, then I'll cheer for the team who has more, I guess.
All right. Now, Derrick, speaking of Karl Anthony Towns, I got a lot of relatives up here. I am broadcasting. For those that have not heard, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I'm up in Ohio doing the show from the Denison University dorms here. So I'm surrounded by people from the Buckeye State. So amongst them, plenty of Cavs fans, including my relatives. They are still stinging from what happened in Game 1 at Madison Square Garden. Do you think the Cavs can recover going back home and get back in the series against the Knicks?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, man. Listen, they as great as Harden has been in his career. He's been great, an ultimate scorer. He had been at one point the best, probably a top 2 scorer in the league. He's no longer that. He'll give you spurts here and there from the offensive side of the ball, but he is a complete. And when I say complete, I mean from one end to the other. He is a complete liability on the defensive side of the ball. He is. All they do when he's in the game, especially toward the end, you saw it in game when New York came back down 20-something points. All they did after a while was find who Harding was checking or guarding, and they pick and rolled him. And they called they called for the pick, and they had to switch. And that put him on Brunson. Exactly.
It was Brunson.
And Brunson killed him. Oh, it was bad.
That was just a mismatch.
Yeah, it was bad. He's a liability on the defensive side. Now, if he's hitting, you have no choice but to leave him in the game. But the con of that or the bad of that is on the defensive end. If it's a close game, he's not going to give you what you need on the defensive side of the ball, because all they're going to do is attack him each and every time. They're going to solo him, get him in a pick and roll situation, and they're going to take advantage of it.
So we'll see what happens. I really hope that they make it a series. I just, as a fan of the game, I just love when these series go deep. So I'm hoping the Cavs get back into it.
Willie,
so now go ahead.
I guess you're about to say what I was going to ask you about, because we talked to Elliotte about this yesterday, and we had a good conversation with Elliotte yesterday. I don't know. You need to go back and hear it for two guys that doesn't know hockey like you and Adam.
We held our own.
Yeah, I think we held our own with Elliotte yesterday. Hear. Absolutely. But I did ask him about Colorado and them having such a long rest from the last game to their first game with Montreal, and how would they come out? Would they come out like Colorado did, a step slow, and it cost Colorado?
Yeah, Carolina. Carolina after that long layoff.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Colorado had a layoff, but not as long as Carolina's. And it seemed like Carolina came out a little bit slow as well.
Oh, man. There's no question. I think it was their worst nightmare, worst case scenario, because I'm sure people have been worried about it for probably a week. Like, oh, they're not going to play for a while. Oh, man, it's 10 days. Now it's 11 days. How are they going to go? They're going to be rusty. I'm sure that they fought that as much as they could. And Rod Brindamore is one of the best coaches in the NHL. But sometimes I think it's just a real thing when you're out of your rhythm, you're out of your routine for that long, like 12 days.
Yes.
I mean, think about an all-star break. That's 4 or 5 days. Sometimes it's hard to get it back quick when you come out of that. But 12 days, that's really tough. Now, I will say this: they got it going in the second period. That's where I thought Montreal was really good. Their goalie in particular,
yes, he was.
Gobesh.
He's lights out.
Very, very well.
Yes.
As a young goalie, he's come up big for them. And I thought that game could have unraveled on a young Montreal team if they'd have made it 4-3, which they had a lot of shots and chances to do. They were knocking on that door even into the third period. If it gets 4-3 early in the third, I feel like, Montreal could wilt. But they never got it 4-3, and then they got the one goal to make it 5-2, and they had just enough to hold on. So that's how Montreal's been doing it. They haven't been dominating, but they've shown a lot of guts to find ways to win big road games for such a young team. And 2 Game 7 wins on the road already. So you gotta tip your hat. That's a pretty cool thing. But I do think the Hurricanes are going to come back strong, and I don't think they'll be intimidated going on the road either.
Now,
I think I'm a little more intrigued with what's going on with Vegas.
Yes,
and their series against the Avs. The Avs have to play down a game, and I thought they were just holding him out for one game, just give a couple extra days. But now, with backs to the wall, not having him for a second game, wow, this is a big, big challenge for the Avs.
Yeah, you saw without him in the first game how he was missed, and how they took advantage of that in the first game, meaning Vegas. And if they don't change something, if they don't come out, ready to play, they may end up, occurring the same fate that they did in the first game, because Vegas looked like they're on the mission. I still think Colorado is the better team, but not having one of your playmakers out there does, especially when you've had a long period off, not as long as Colorado, Carolina, but it still was long. And then not having one of your playmakers on it, playing against a team that's pretty good, it does hurt you in some ways. Did we lose Willie? I think we lost Willie. Willie was ready to go already, Connor.
He's talking.
Is he talking? Did he put his phone on? He got his computer on mute again. Boy, I tell you.
No, Willie doesn't have the mute icon. He's talking. I just can't hear him.
Oh, Willie is like retro. Hit the button when you're talking. He can't hear yourself, and no one can hear you.
It's Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. He's allowed to do that on Fridays, aren't we all?
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, it's going to be a hell of a game tonight. Versus Vegas and Colorado. Obviously, Colorado is at home this game, and they're trying to, even the series out as they head to Vegas after this game. But yeah, they're going to have to, because I'm not sure if they go down 2-0 against Vegas, and especially if they're still missing Cal McCarr, if they're going to be able to come back and win this series. I'm not saying that they wouldn't push the series to 7, but the longer that they don't have one of their playmakers, and if they can't get this game 2, it's going to be very difficult, at least in my eyes. Willie can better tell you, but at least in my eyes, even though I feel they are the better team, going down 2-0 without one of your playmakers, and you don't know when he's coming back with an upper body injury, could be, catastrophic for this team.
Yeah, I agree. It's similar to De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
It's someone that sets the tempo, someone that sets the style of play that you have, and without him, it's going to be a tougher challenge. So it will be interesting. Willie, can you talk?
Are you back, Willie?
He's talking.
Willie's
we're not
talking,
hearing.
But we're not hearing.
Literally in the last minute of the show.
I did say we'd be talking and you'd be listening, but I guess can't nobody hear Willie right about now. He's talking. And we're not listening to him. So, but we had a wonderful week. Adam was out the whole week, enjoying his week with his family up north. He will be back Tuesday because Monday is the holiday. But we enjoyed our week. We enjoyed you listening, and we appreciate it. Willie, are you back? I guess Willie still is not back. So, but
can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you
there
now, Willie. There we go.
Okay. I don't know what I did. But anyway, I'm glad it happened at 5:55 and not 3:55. So, so we can wrap it up there. But yeah, you guys made good points. Let's just sit back and enjoy the games, and everybody have a great weekend.
Well, Willie, you enjoy the rest of the week. The weekend. Hopefully, Dennison can come on with that victory and that championship, and we can talk about it a lot starting Tuesday at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Because, listen, you enjoy your week. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. All right, we will see you on these airways, or you will be listening to us on these airways once again, starting Tuesday, because Monday is the holiday, but Tuesday at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game, because We're going to be talking, and
You're going to be listening.
absolutely. Peace and joy. We love you. Have a safe and wonderful holiday.